Hi, this is Jessica Nielsen in Legal 200. This is my quick overview of Westlaw features. When you first enter Westlaw, you see a Welcome to Westlaw title like you see here, but it's not very effective. So look in the right hand corner to where it says Add a Tab. Click here and you'll see that you have some options where it says Add Westlaw Tabs. Click there. And it gives you a long list. Move on down, you see some topical ones. You see some jurisdictional ones for state, federal, UK, international, Canada, etc. I particularly chose Washington, paralegal, and federal. You can have as many as you want. If you look at the Washington tab, you will see some important things. On the left hand side you'll see Find by Citation. You have to have the cite for that, and there's a template that can help you put it in the right format. If you have a correct citation, you can key cite it using this database here. Key cite will get you two things. Number one, all the cases that cite that particular case in any way, shape, or form. And number two, it'll give you a flag that indicates the current status of the case as good or bad law. More detail on that later. You'll see in the corner here, left-hand side, search for a database. I don't actually recommend starting there. If you have your tabs, like I have, the Washington Paralegal and Federal, you don't really need to start here, and it's kind of confusing. It does have your recent and favorite databases, which is nice. But I think if you know you're going to be in the paralegal, or I'm sorry, in the Washington database, you can use the Washington cases. You know, I was taught Westlaw using terms and connectors, and I used to get very stressed out about terms and connectors, and I really don't stress out about it anymore. I just go to natural language search. So let me click there, natural language, and you can see that that's the white one and that's the active one right now. And then we need to select a database. Well, we see a lot of choices here on the Washington tab. We see Washington State cases, Washington State and federal cases. Given that this is a purely domestic issue of who owns an engagement ring, I would probably eliminate the federal cases. And the Washington State trial court orders does not apply. Those are generally non-published or unpublished orders that just don't apply. They're not precedential. They don't have appellate court power behind them. You see also all federal and state cases. I would tend not to go there first because that's going to give you too much. The first question, since you know it's a Washington case, is what is there in Washington? Only if you can't find something in Washington would you go outside of there, because that's going to include your secondary authority, which is not as useful. It's only persuasive and you know, only used in a pinch. So let me just try a natural language search and see what happens. Oops, I forgot something. I should definitely be moving down this little arrow until I see Washington practice. In general, if you are in Washington and you don't have a clue, try the Washington Practice series. It's a good general description. Now I see that I need to check Washington State cases. So I've got two databases checked, Washington State and Washington Practice series. Let's try clicking search. It gave me 100 documents. That's what you get when you do a natural language search. You can search within you can locate and result if you want to search within those 100, or you can edit your search here to make it more narrow. What I would do is pick this first one and just look and see if it adds to my search terms. I see engagement ring as a conditional gift. Let's click on that for a minute and see what we find. Nice. So this is Washington practice, and we can tell because it's WA-PRAC. And if you look down at the very bottom, can you see where it says term and best? Those are really helpful to get to the key stuff. The term will take you to everywhere in the document where your term shows up, and the best will take you to the best situation in the document that reflects your term. So let's try best and make life easier. Okay, engagement ring is a conditional gift. Once the engagement is broken, the ring must be returned irrespective of who broke the engagement. So I see. The WA-Practice is telling me that there's different approaches, and it actually cites the ALR down below here. So this seems to be what I needed. And it has the author's view, which says that the modern trend should be adopted in Washington, but that makes it pretty clear that maybe it isn't adopted in Washington. So what I see when I see these things is I don't see a Washington case cited in here, and I see an annotation. Okay, right up above that section that I was looking at, right above the best section, is the Spinell case, 1990. So we know that that's a Washington case on the topic. And if we look a little further below, we see another Washington case, 1946, that may have had a different result. Basically, this points us in the right direction. We have our cases. So let's just grab this Spinell case and see what it says. Spinell versus Quigley. Okay. Great. So if we look at that, it gives us a yellow flag. Yellow means there is some precedent, but some unfavorable precedent, but the case isn't completely overruled. So that gives us kind of a caution, and that tells us that we need to look at the cases that have cited Spinell and see if maybe there's a particular section that the courts don't like, or we're not quite sure what that means at this point, but we know we've got to do a little further research. So that site that we hit, that hyperlink, moved us right into the section of Spinell that seems relevant. At this point, we would read Spinell thoroughly and make sure. Frankly, if Spinell answered the question, at least as in 1990, I would stop. The annotation is great, but again, annotations cover the entire scope of that particular issue throughout the United States. So that's going to go broader than you need. Really, your job in researching in Washington State is to figure out what Washington says. Only if you cannot figure that out do you go outside Washington. So Spinell may well answer the question. Now we need to see if it's good law, if there's anything more recent, or if the cases that cite it are saying negative things about it. So let's take a look. I'm going to click on the yellow flag, and it's going to tell me that there's some negative history, but it's not overruled. Now let's take a look at this. What can we figure out? Well, we have this direct history tab, and that would just basically show us where this particular case fits within its own history. Okay, is there a trial court decision? Is there a further Supreme Court decision, etc.? Right now, it's a Washington appellate decision, so we need to figure out where it fits. Let's take a quick look. Okay, well, all right, there's no direct history for this particular case, so I'll hit the back arrow. Citing references. Okay, that's going to tell us, let's click on citing references. That's going to show us 29 cases that have cited Spinell, and it starts with the negative cases in the United States, and it tells us that cases, okay, do you see any Washington case in here? I don't. I see a Kansas, Ohio, I see a Minneapolis. So the negative cases talking about this case are not Washington cases, so that's good. What that really means is it appears to be still good law in Washington. There's no subsequent case, and there's no Washington case saying something negative about it. So it's still good law. Now, if we were really, really relying on this case and we needed to go in depth with it and make sure we understood it inside and out, we might want to take a look at these other cases and see if maybe they had a rationale that would undercut the case, that maybe the Washington courts, when seeing the rationale of these other cases, would tend to overrule the case. You know, you're kind of predicting what a court might do in the next situation, and if these particular courts had some great reasoning, maybe the next Washington case would adopt that. I see it's also got some positive cases, and then it's been cited. And you can also, remember, take a look at the significance of the citation by these stars. If there's 3 stars, there's a lot of citation of the case. If it's merely 2 stars, it's just cited, and if it's merely 1 star, it's just mentioned. So you can tell based upon the stars how significant the quotation is of that particular case. I want you to note also in the citation cases, see how it says HN1? That means head note 1, head note 1, head note 1. That means that that particular case, the Hyman v. Parrish, took issue with the content of head note 1 in our case. So you don't have to determine, you know, you can figure out what the issue is that they're disagreeing with by focusing on that head note. Also note that there are active links that you can jump onto, and that will take you to that case disagreeing with Spinell. And notice that that case itself has a yellow flag, so you can really start getting intricate with its history. Your main goal, though, is figuring out, is Spinell good law? So, since there are no further cases in the particular line of that family of cases, and since there's no Washington case that disagrees with it, Spinell is good law. And it may well be the most current law. But one thing we can do is we can check the head notes of Spinell and then use this West key number as a search in the, I think it's the advanced tab or whatever it is, the tab that lets you put in Boolean searches and so forth. You can use key numbers as a search tool, and those are keyed to the head notes. Let me just show you that real quick. So let's look at the Spinell case. Let's look at the first head note. Okay, there we go. Head notes. Remember that head notes are not law. They're just the Westlaw editor's version of what they think is important in the case. And here we see 191 K34. That is going to be the head note that is most applicable. And if we want to, we can just search from here. It's an activated link. Westlaw makes it so easy. So just click on 191 K34. Then it's going to ask you what jurisdiction you want, and this is called a digest. And you just determine if you want to. Let's look in Washington and see if there's any more recent cases. It includes ALR, law reviews, and notice we have a new key term. We have conditional gifts. So we could put a date restriction in there. We could say last 10 years. That won't really cover it. Let's leave it unrestricted, and then let's search. Okay, what are we going to find here? Westlaw's thinking. Okay, so we find a grand total of 1 head note, and it's back in the Spinell case. So that tells us that there's only one decision in Washington that uses that particular head note, which tells us pretty well that there aren't other cases on point, at least using that head note. Look off to the left here, and you're going to see what's called Results Plus. This is Westlaw's version of, gee, would you like this at more cost? So Results Plus is more stuff, more cost, may be applicable. They tend to be more general, treatise type things that can be helpful. Again, you don't need those because you already have on-point Washington cases, so you don't have to go there. So at this point, we've determined there is a case. It's the most recent. At least there's no other head notes citing Spinell more recently. It seems to be good law, so we just need to read it carefully and then apply it. If we want to be thorough and maybe scholarly, we can tell our attorney about other states or maybe the ALR, or maybe we can reassure our attorney by saying, well, gosh, other states do follow this particular rule, or Washington is in the majority of cases, or whatever. That would just give the attorney kind of a broader framework or context to understand the rule against what other states do. But we've answered our question. Okay, I'll spend more time doing this if you guys find it helpful, and thanks for listening.